Hello and welcome to Finextra TV. I'm Hannah Wallace and we're speaking in the lead up to Singapore Fintech Festival. With me now in the virtual studio discussing artificial intelligence is Shayan Hazir, Chief Digital Officer for HSBC Southeast Asia. So welcome, Shayan. It's great to have you on.
It's great to be here, Hannah. Thank you.
Really good to have you on. Like I say, we're speaking in the lead up to Singapore Fintech Festival, which I know is going to be a busy event for yourself. And one of the big topics of discussion is artificial intelligence across the board, really. And what I want to focus on for this interview is some of the challenges we're seeing impeding the growth of AI, how those can be met, and also the use of AI. So to kick us off, it'd be great if you could share some of those challenges you're hoping to cover over the course of the event.
Sure, absolutely. Well, the challenges that we face at HSBC are not much different than a lot of the other more larger global banks are facing across the world. It's such an exciting area. Generative AI has really been a tipping point technology for artificial intelligence. I look at it as something that has actually shifted it from what people perceive to be a back office kind of techie data and analytics team driven case into something that's quite front end and customer facing and creating efficiencies out in the front office as well. And so how you balance that and how you make that transition is going to be key for banks like us and certainly many of the other technology players in the market. And we very quickly saw all of the big technology companies from OpenAI to Google to now soon to be Amazon, everybody is going to be creating their own versions of the ChatGPT capability. And obviously, they have some embedded capabilities on existing infrastructure like Microsoft 365, and you have Copilot. Google will have Bard. How those technologies actually come together in creating efficiencies for organizations for us within the enterprise, and how those are adopted, that's a pretty big challenge if you think about it. And it's not very simple, is it? It's about saying, when we're moving from data orchestration into a conversation about prompt engineering, for example, how do we get our people prepared for that change? So I think that generally is a challenge, but with that has come thousands of use cases. Thousands of use cases for an organization. Again, for our size, 62 markets. Everybody wants to be at the front end of it. If they finally feel like they have something tangible to play with. It's no longer, like I said, something in the back office. People feel like there's a use case. If you're a wealth manager, there's a use case. If you're a relationship manager, there's a use case if you're in the product development team. And so suddenly everybody's getting very excited, but there is risks, regulations, and governance that have to be brought into the picture. And we have to be, responsible AI has been, a big topic of discussion for many, many years now. But as it proliferates, it becomes more relevant. So that's the second big piece is, yes, there's immense excitement. Yes, it's more tangible. Yes, it's more hands-on. But how do you create the guardrails that we need to make it something that is safe and responsible to use? So that's the second big case. So I was talking about it earlier. We've got so many use cases. What do we start with? So the prioritization of those opportunities is the other piece. And you can look at it as those things that are going to impact you in the short run, those that are going to be there slightly more longer burn as the technology evolves and develops. And then there's this really sort of exciting third avenue is how does that change the world? How are we going to be engaging and interacting with this technology, which could significantly alter the way we operate? And for each of those three paradigms, there are individual challenges. So if you look at in the short run, I'll be very open and honest with you. Not all banks have solved their data orchestration problem. Data architecture has been historically a huge issue, and for banks, particularly when you look at consent, you look at privacy, you look at cross-border data regulation and data sharing challenges. We've always struggled with being able to access all of our data to its utmost. And so if you build a layer of generative AI and you think about large language models, if your baseline data isn't optimized to be fully efficient, well, your Gen AI capability is also not going to be fully efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And so we I think that what this does is create a massive impetus to solve that first baseline problem. Let's get our data right and then work with regulators and work with policymakers so that we can fully harness the power of this for ourselves and our own efficiencies around things like cost optimization, but also providing amazing products to our clients.
And that's what's wonderful about Singapore Fintech Festival. It's really going to bring the policymakers, the regulators, and the FIs all in one room to discuss those challenges. So thank you for highlighting those for us. So let's come to the response then. What actions do you think key stakeholders can take then to collectively build AI in the financial ecosystem and keep that ball rolling?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of, and it's not because I'm based in Singapore. I'll tell you honestly, it's because I have a huge appreciation for the Monetary Authority of Singapore. The way in which their fintech and innovation group operates, and in fact, they're the ones leading the fintech festival holistically. That's the ideation hub essentially within the MAS. Um, they allow for experimentation to be a holistic part of how they operate. And so, as a result of that, they took forth a consortium of banks and technology companies and initiated a project called Project Mindforge. And you'll hear this buzzing through the festival, and you can go and see HSBC's logo as one of the consortium members. We're very proud of that. But what it did is it gave us an opportunity to all sit together in a room, banks with technology companies, with the key investment players in the market, and said, well, what are the implications of Gen AI? What do we actually really need to do to experiment in a safe way? And who better to experiment in a safe way than with the central bank? And so what we started off with is creating what we call public utility, because I think everybody's a little bit careful and precious about going into customer use cases straight off the bat. So the question was, okay, so if we have these public utilities, what do we use them for? And there were two areas which we specifically focused on. One was around fraud and risk management. And then the other was around making the communication between the central bank and banks more efficient. So it's like a policy portal. So I think both of those areas have generated some really exciting outcomes and sort of openly identified areas which policymakers need to step in. And so I think you have to learn by doing. We can't make assumptions about it because it's an early step. Like Gen AI has been around for, I mean, sorry, artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, but like we have to kind of use kid gloves with new technology. And so when you experiment with the central bank and they're supportive of you being a little bit more explorative with what you're trying to do, you can then really quickly identify areas where you need to sharpen your policy pencils and make things a little bit more orchestrated in terms of how you execute.
Sure, there are three key words I'm hearing, and that's exploring, experimentation, and one I'd add is education as well is really important for moving that forward. And you've touched on these already, but I want to end on some of the opportunities around AI, generative AI, also some opportunities for the regulators as well. So we're kind of looking forward, the crystal ball question, as it were.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. I think when you look back at when Bitcoin was launched, you never thought that blockchain would be the technology, as pervasive as it is now, we'd be where we are. We're looking at digital assets, we're looking at amazing use cases for blockchain. So I think it's still early in terms of predicting what this is going to become. But I think this attitude of experimentation, this collaboration across banks and across regulators working together to figure it out, and a deep understanding that we're doing this for the betterment of customer experience. We're doing it for the betterment of providing efficient solutions. We're doing this to make things cheaper and more accessible to a larger, group of the population. I think keeping those in mind, we've got a huge opportunity here. But I would also say that the issues that we have today, which we talked about earlier around data and how we orchestrate it, will be short term. And then it's going to be the education and training piece about how this becomes a part of the way we operate on a daily basis. What's going to be the differentiator? And in my mind, prompt is going to be a huge differentiator between how banks operate, how banks are going to be engaging with with their customers, and really making it seamless and easy for clients, and really allowing us to take full advantage of the amazing benefits of generative AI and artificial intelligence in general much more easily if we're educated around the way in which we prompt it. So I think those are the two things I would say in crystal ball, slightly shorter term, not, I wouldn't be crystal ball, I think, in that case.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. And Shayan, I know you're doing a lot at HSBC in this space as well. So looking forward to seeing and hearing more from you further down the line. And I urge anyone who's wanting to learn more, hear more, to tune in to your sessions at the event. But thank you very much for sharing your insights today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Hannah.